A plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that.
I just saw a huge, ball of fire on top. I hope I live. It's coming down on me.
My life changed completely after 9/11. After the attacks of 9/11, they basically told us to get our bags packed because we were going to go somewhere. Nobody knew right away. And we were the front unit that was selected eventually to go to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and help establish and run the detention operations there. So why GITMO? We decided that it was not safe and secure enough in country to hold detainees. Camp X-Ray, which was the designation of the initial detention facility, was Spartan. We had to hastily develop processes to get these guys in and give them all the things that we would normally give a prisoner of war. These guys are unlawful combatants, and they're unlawful combatants legally because they don't have a command structure per se, they're not wearing uniforms, they don't carry their weapons openly, they're unconventional, certainly not the status of a prisoner of war. My boss was told directly by the Secretary of Defense that we would treat them within the spirit of Geneva. So the treatment that they're given should be equal to that of how the U.S. soldier is being treated. These guys, some of them kill for a living. You needed to be very careful around them. We had guards who were threatened. Their lives were threatened. They tried to disrupt the operations every chance they get with their GITMO cocktails. It's called splashing, when they collect their bodily fluids and splash them onto a guard. They were, in the words of Donald Rumsfeld, the worst of the worst. Imagine, if you will, in the very beginning, these guys were coming from the battlefield in Afghanistan. Many of them had severe battle wounds that we were treating. It was a highly stressful, highly taxing job. And these folks, to me, these are the heroes. These are the people who day in, day out deal with people who want to kill them. Each one of these guys had a personality. You had Saudis, you had Yemenis, you had Pakistanis. Every kind of person you can imagine was in this mix. Well, Abdul Razak was an interesting fellow. His name was Wild Bill because he displayed very erratic behavior, bizarre behavior. He would take bites out of his flip-flops. He would throw GITMO cocktails of bodily fluids on guards. He was somewhat combative, but not necessarily very dangerous. But he was at GITMO for a reason. He was suspected of being either a Taliban or Al-Qaeda, might have valuable information that could save lives. But over time, it was determined, and this was about a 4-month period of time, that he was no longer of any intelligence value, nor was he determined to be a threat to the United States. So he was going to be released. Our boss tasked 3 or 4 of us to be part of Wild Bill's Freedom Caravan, for lack of a better term. So I got Abdi, started her up. Abdul was in back. We drove to the abandoned hospital over there. So we started to ask Abdul questions. Like, dude, what's your story? What happened? This young man was a cold turkey heroin addict and an off his meds schizophrenic. He said he was in Kandahar. The Taliban came by. They were out recruiting, and he was offered heroin if he would pick up an AK-47. But eventually he was captured by the Northern Alliance in Mazar-e Sharif, then transferred to U.S. custody, and eventually wound up at GITMO. Eventually we get word that the plane is inbound, so we load up. He gets out, he gets taken away, and it was kind of a good feeling. We found a guy that was not someone who really wanted to go out and kill us, which is probably the majority of the guys who were there. But that's the effort we made from the very beginning to sort these guys out, to find out who were the terrorists, who were the foot soldiers, what did you know, get that information, and then clear the place out. So we kind of felt good. Unfortunately, something happened a couple weeks after that. I just remember the boss walking into the hooch, and he's kind of shaking his head and says, "You know Wild Bill?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, they told us when Wild Bill arrived in Afghanistan, they put a bullet in his head." I said, "You gotta be kidding me." I said, "We vetted that guy. They put a bullet in his head?" And we were just so deflated to lose one of these guys. I mean, we tried so hard all day, every day to make them comfortable, to keep them healthy and alive, you know. It's like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this if they're just gonna, kill these folks?
Oh, what I'd give to see you again.
So we're kind of depressed, and then one day I get into the office. A Navy commander says to me, he says, "Come here." I said, "What?" He says, "Look at this." And he pointed to a story by Newsweek. It was dated May 17, 2002. And the title of the story was "The One That Got Away." And there, in all his glory, sitting on a hospital bed, was Wild Bill. He was not shot in the head as soon as he got off the plane. It was a relief to see this story about Wild Bill, that he was okay. He sat on the bed, said, "How were you treated?" And he said, "Well, they fed us 3 times a day, and they were trying to keep us in good health." Now, this is a quote in a Newsweek story you can look up today online. So here it is. The mainstream media have proof and evidence that we're not abusing them, we're not torturing them, we're treating them like human beings. No follow-up, no mention on CNN. CNN was there the whole time. They were like gnats around us, always trying to find out classified information. It's just incredible how the media treated us while we were there. And one time Bob Franken said, "Look, if you don't tell me what I need to know and help me do my job," he says, "I'll just make it up." In fact, he did make it up. We'd read something like, "There was a riot in Camp X-Ray last night." And turn to my boss and say, "Boss, was there a riot last night? I don't remember a riot." And they just made stuff up.
A hunger strike by inmates at Guantanamo Bay has been going on now for nearly 3 months. Around 100 of the 166 detainees are refusing food. At least 20 of them are being force-fed.
I was there when they force-fed the first 2 hunger strikers. I was observing from my commander the procedure, and it was done with such humanity and with such care, but was portrayed as torture. And that's hard to deal with. It just kind of blew a hole in my idea that what you read and see on the news is true. That every time you read a story about GITMO, you see the photograph of the orange-clad detainees on their knees with sensory deprivation, the blacked out glasses, the headphones and whatnot. But they were on the gravel in a holding area only for several minutes or maybe half hour at most, waiting to be in process. It's not like they kept them there in that position. It was just really depressing to me to see and hear story after story after story alleging abuse and torture, etc. But the International Committee of the Red Cross physicians I worked with at GITMO said that no one does detention operations better than the U.S. Out of all the detaining authorities in the world, the U.S. is always the best. And why are we the best? Because that's how we train. We don't train to mistreat people. You know what I mean? We train to take care of people. The nickname for the detainees was Carrots because they all came in very thin and skinny and were wearing orange, and we called Camp X-Ray the Garden. And I think that says a lot about where our minds were. You can laugh about them being visually vegetables, but it was the idea of caring for them. And we cared for them so well that after a while we stopped calling many of them carrots. We started calling them pumpkins because they were busting them out of their orange jumpsuit. I mean, these guys get free Qurans, free prayer rugs and prayer beads, special Muslim holy holiday meals, including lamb and baklava. We even had on the guard towers in Arabic the direction that they had to pray. They got world-class health care, vision care, dental care, anything that could be provided, we provided it for them. It was our job to keep them alive. We each got into the Army for our reasons, but, we're human beings first. We're loyal American soldiers who, take seriously the values in the military. I think we did a great job, and we're still doing a great job.